Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar today. We'll be talking about the Google Analytics capabilities within Tableau. Tableau 8 has an exciting new capability, which is to, out of the box, allow a connection to your Google Analytics instance. It just verifies your security, and once you've made the connection, it's actually quite easy to pull down statistics from your website traffic. And actually, Jim will be walking us through a demonstration of this, and we'll be looking at what some of those analytics mean, as well as how to build the dashboard that you'll be looking at. So just to start this off, I'm going to talk a little bit about Statslice. We're a Dallas-based business intelligence services company. And we'll be talking today about Tableau specifically, so I'd like to highlight the fact that we are a Tableau partner. And this means that we're able to provide services around software sales with Tableau, as well as implementation help, any kind of custom development. We also provide training on the Tableau product, and of course, any kind of support that is required. As far as the webinar overview, we'll first take a look at connecting to Google Analytics, how that's done. It's actually very simple. Jim will then walk us through an overview of a sample dashboard that he put together. We'll walk through building the dashboard, and then we'll talk about any questions that might have been asked. And along those lines, let me just talk about the process as well. We're going to have everybody on mute throughout the webinar today. And but that doesn't mean you can't ask questions. We actually encourage you to ask questions. We would just like you to use your chat window to do that. So as we go along and cover the different topics, feel free to type into your chat window, and we'll be processing those questions as real time as we can, and hopefully answer any questions that might be out there. And if we can't answer any specific questions today, we'll be sure to get back with you. So with that, let me turn the presenter over to Jim. Jim Vogel is a senior Statslice systems consultant, and he's got a lot of experience with both Tableau and Google Analytics. So let me go ahead and transfer this over. Just 1 second, please. Okay, Jim, you should have presenter.
Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to walk you through Google Analytics and how we can bring it straight into Tableau. I've got a dashboard here on the left that gives us a basic overview. I'm just going to walk you through the 3 dashboards that I'm going to create here. First is just a viewer analysis. It takes a look at geographic sources, takes a look at new versus returning, mobile versus desktop, and just gives you a little bit of analysis. We've got some interactivity here where I can select a specific state and focus on this. And on the right, we've got how many visitors we have and how much time they spend on our website. Next dashboard is just visit analysis. We want to take a look at what are our top 10 pages that people visit. Also, we're taking a look at drop-offs, how much where people drop off from our website, and how much time they spend on our website when they drop off. On the last page, use a little bit of a cloud setup here where we're taking a look at traffic sources, and we want to look at the source path where something came from and the target page of what they hit. So to add some interactivity, you can click LinkedIn, and boom, now we're just looking at LinkedIn. So let's go through and actually build this from scratch. I'm just going to create a new dashboard. We're going to connect to data, and on the left you can see they have lots of choices, but we're going to choose Google Analytics as what we're going to connect to. Immediately it just asks you to sign in using Google's login. So we're just going to sign in here. Pops up asking you, or Google warns you saying Tableau Desktop is asking to hit up your Google Analytics. Of course, we allow access, and boom, we are connected. We're going to choose my demo here, And now I have selected the account, the location, and which profile I am connected to. Instead, for date ranges, instead of doing this, I'm actually going to choose a fixed range because there's not much data on my demo. And we're going to go from 5/20/2012 to 5/20/2013. Obviously, you have the option to choose lots and lots of date ranges here, but we're just going to choose all of it. We have the ability to choose some custom measure groups that Tableau has predefined. Basically, they show what measures we want to look at when we're looking at time, when we're looking at page timings, we want to look at click-throughs, etc. I'm actually going to go to custom here because we are going to select some very specific ones. And one thing to note, you only have the ability to select 7 dimensions at any point in time. We can get around this limitation by creating multiple connections, and we will do that in this demo. But at any point in time, you can only have 7 dimensions in your data source in Tableau. So obviously, date is already chosen. We're going to grab some of the default choices here. One of the things that Tableau does nicely when you select dimensions is when you mouse over certain ones, they will tell you the information about that particular location. So if you're not sure, you're not that familiar with Google Analytics, and you're not sure if this is what you want, just mouse over it, take a look, and play with it. I'm going to pull in keyword, and we're doing a lot of audience analysis here. So I'm going to go in, and we're going to grab, sure, I want the location. Let's grab the state and province. I want to know if they are mobile or not. It's just a yes or a no.
Jim, just one brief reminder to everybody, if I may just interrupt for 1 second. I saw a hand come up, and just a reminder, if you would please type in any questions that you have into your chat window on GoToWebinar. We'll be happy to answer those questions as we receive them. Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
Yep. And the last thing we're going to grab is visitor type. And for measures, we're going to grab, again, from audience. I'm basically going to grab everything from audience. I want to know new visits, unique visits, visit duration, which is in seconds, and visits. And we'll connect. What Tableau is doing is it's actually importing, it's creating an extract based off of the data that you grab from Google Analytics once we connect. So let's go right into building our first visualization, that new versus returning. So I know that I want to do date, but we're going to switch this to quarter instead. We're going to pull visits. I'm going to change this to a bar chart so I get a nice split here. I wonder why I'm getting 4 quarters here. I must have messed up on the dates here. We are then going to pull in visitor type and drop it on color, so that now we've got bars split up based off of each color. Let's switch this to discrete. And we are going to change this to a, we're going to do a quick table calculation for % of total. And then I'm also going to bring this down onto the label itself. So now we've got visits split up with a % of total. Now note that the percentages are across the total. I'm going to edit the table calculation and switch it to table down so that it's % per quarter. So I can split these. And actually, since I leave text on visits, I think we're going to swap this out. So now I've got a split up of what percentage, and then we can actually tell total counts we have of visits we have in each quarter that we look at. We are also, I would also like to pull in actually mobile versus non-mobile. So I'm just going to drag visits again. I've split this now into 2 different groups. Switch over to my second visits, and instead of coloring on visitor type, I'm going to color by mobile. And we'll rename these desktop. And this is new versus returning. So we built our first visualization straight in Google Analytics. We've pulled in the data. You can see we've split all this information up. And we're just going to go straight through into our next visualization. Our next visualization we're going to call Viewing Characteristics. What I want to do here is we want to take a look at the dates and when people actually view our information. We're going to switch when people actually view our website. I'm going to switch this over to day, so we're looking at a set of days, and we're going to pull in unique visitors. 2 seconds here. We are going to color on visitor type. Now this looks a little ugly. Obviously, if we're splitting up by days, we have spikes in traffic extremely quickly. So we're going to switch this over to a table calculation to do a moving average. And then I'm actually going to edit this table calculation. Instead of just 2 days, we're going to say for the last 10 days, and we're going to remove like the first 10 because there's not enough for a moving average. That gives us a nice base graph here that allows us to take a look at unique visitors. For visit duration, we're actually going to create, if I bring in, just straight bring in visit duration, Google's going to sum this, and this is just total visit duration we have. It doesn't really make sense because we got 27,000 seconds of a visit in a specific day. Instead, we're going to create a calculated field for this that is going to be the visit duration in minutes.
Okay, Jim, I believe we have a question. So the question is there a limit on the number of rows you can extract?
The limit is actually based off of what Google allows you to pull in. So it's based on the number of dimensions that you pull in and that set of dates. So what's happening in the background is they are extracting the data and aggregating it up and sending it into Tableau. So yes, there is a limit, I would assume, but you don't ever see that. Just select your date range, select the dimensions and measures you want, and run with it. Does that answer your question? Hopefully.
And thanks for the question. Okay, great. Yes, it does. And I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the chat window, and we'll do our best to get through all of your questions. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
I see Teresa also asked a question. What happens if you notice you've forgotten to measure a dimension? We will get to that, but basically what happens is you can go back into Google Analytics, choose what you want again, and then hit OK. Tableau will redo an extract. And then if you had to remove a dimension or something else, you'll get a little red marker on the dimension because it no longer is in the data set, but your new dimension will show up in there. And I'll point that out when I get to that later on. Okay, so back to this. We're going to visit duration minutes, which is the sum of our visit duration divided by the sum of our total visits, and then I'm going to divide it by 60 to give it in minutes instead of seconds. So it's a little easier to read. And we're just going to drag this in, and now we have separated out by this is our number of visitors across the top, and at the bottom we have our visit duration in minutes. This also looks a little ugly, so we're going to choose a moving average for this as well. So let's do a quick table calculation, moving average again, and let's edit this table calculation and switch it to 10, basically doing the exact same as what we have up above. So now it looks a little cleaner, and we can see that, oh, we had a nice big spike in visit duration at around January 1st, and we don't have a lot of visit duration down here. We had a nice big spike in new visitors around March 1st, etc. So our last step for our very first dashboard, if you remember, is this, let me go back to this, is this geographic view where I want to see where my sources came from. So I have, so we're going to create one more here. I'm going to rename sheet. And we are going to pull in state or province, which gives us a nice map. We don't care about Hawaii, and it throws the map off a little bit, so I'm just going to exclude it. We'll switch the map type to filled, so you get a full-size map. And we want to look at visits. Now, once I look at visits, you can see, wow, we've got a ton from Texas, but we don't have much from anything else. It's a little difficult to read. I'm going to try first by editing the colors to make this a little easier to read. Let's go orange-blue. No, that still didn't necessarily work. Texas is still just overseeing this. And a way to fix that when you have very, very disparate data is to use a logarithmic calculation. So I'm actually going to do that. We're going to create a calculated field here, and we're going to choose the log of the total number of visits we have. And in fact, and we're going to say, call this log of visits. So instead of coloring by visits, we're actually going to color by log of visits. And if we switch this color back again, you can now see that I've got a nice little breakout. I can still see that Texas has the most, but individuals like California has a good amount, and New York also has a good amount of visits that we're looking at. One last thing, we'll just bring in visits into the data pane, and we'll go to tooltip here, and let's get rid of log, so you don't actually show it on the tooltip. So now when I look over here, we can see how many visits each location has. So there's our first three, and if you notice, we have enough to actually create our first dashboard. So I'm going to go create a new dashboard here, and we'll call it visitors. Call it the visitors dashboard. Let's pull out geography. Now Tableau by default, Tableau 8 by default switches the size to a desktop. Since I want to make this nice and big, we're going to set it to automatic and make it full screen. We're going to pull in our new versus returning. Actually, we're going to pull in our viewing characteristics first on the right, and then we're going to pull in new versus returning. So now I've got my new versus returning down here. I've got my viewing characteristics, and just to add our interactivity here, we're going to use geography as a filter, since geography is part of the data connection. Now when I click on Texas, now I'm only looking at viewing characteristics just in Texas. Or if we want to look at California, I'm only looking at viewing characteristics in California. Or better than that, we'll look at a couple of states. Now we're looking at viewing characteristics across these states and updating the data accordingly. Okay, any other questions or anything else at the moment? I'm going to keep moving on here. So our next step, if you recall, is we're going to do our visitor analysis here. So we're still going to use the same geographic view. We want to take a look at drop-offs, and we want to take a look at our top 10 pages, as well as a nice little graph showing history of that. So let's do this top 10 pages graph, or visualization, should I say. So first thing we're going to do, well, looks like we have another question.
Yes, so thanks, Jim. So we have, looks like 2 new questions. So the first one, how do you join 2 extracts? And in this case, I manage a site that has had 2 different analytics profiles in the last 5 years.
Okay. Well, you can do 2 things with that. One, if you have 2 different analytics profiles in Google Analytics, you can actually join those 2 into a new group. But outside of that, you can also end up pulling 2 different data connections to each profile and then using Tableau's data blend to blend on date, to blend on whatever information you're trying to join. Hopefully that answers your question. It looks like there was another one, but I don't know if I can answer that one at the moment.
Yeah, the second question is, can we use advanced segments in our queries to Google Analytics?
I will have to get back to you on that one. I don't know for sure, but I will get back and find out for you. All right, continuing on. We're going to pull our top 10 pages. I want to we're probably going to switch this to week number and set it to continuous. We're going to filter dates. I'm going to choose relative dates now, a new thing in Tableau. And we're going to choose years, and I want to say I only want to look at year-to-date information, so we limit the information we're looking at. We're going to pull out destination page here, which gives us a nice ugly view. But we are going to now filter this by condition. We're going to say by field, and we're going to choose some visits at some visits greater than 10. So now we're only looking at pages that have at least 10 visits. We are going to also pull in visits here. Give us a nice little graph. Hey, we've got now a graph over time of each set of visits. Since we want to hide these, I'm going to edit this axis. We're going to hide visits and hide the tick marks because we don't really care about how many, we just care about relative to each page. We are going to sort this in descending order by visits. You can see this, and the last thing is I want to actually just show the total number of visits we have year to date. So we're going to put it up on this dashboard with a calculated field. Call it total visits, and we're going to go total sum. And once I bring this in, I'm going to change this to a discrete value, and now I can see how many visits I have over this set, what the destination page, root obviously being the base of the page, over time. The only other thing, just to make this look a little nicer, is let's put destination page as color, and let's switch this to an area chart so you get a nice little graph along this. Let's bring this down a little bit, and we are good to go. So next we're going to take a look at drop-offs. If we want to take a look at drop-offs and when people actually drop off from our page. In this particular one, I'm going to actually create a new connection. We're going to duplicate this one, and let's edit it. And we are going to edit the connection, and we are going to add, if you notice right now I'm up to 7, so I can't add anything on this one. We're going to remove our, let's say, mobile, and we are going to add content, and we're going to choose exit page. I want to know what exit page these people left from. And say OK. So now I've got 2 different Google Analytics connections, and if you notice, based on the question previously, based on the question previously, that mobile, since I removed it, has now is now no longer in the pull. So I can actually just delete it since I'm not using it in this connection. Our new setup, this exit page, is in here. So we're going to pull visits again, pull visit duration in minutes, we're going to pull out the exit page, and actually we want to swap these so it looks a little nicer. And then we are going to sort exit page in descending by field. We'll do visits by. So now I'm looking at which locations and showing how many people dropped off on these at these specific pages, as well as their visit duration when they were viewing this. One other thing that we will probably do is I'm going to add this as a filter, and let's just say at least 50 visits, so that we only look at specific pages that actually get hit on our website pretty often. Last but not least, let's color by visits for the left side, and instead we're going to color by visit duration on the right side. And then let's bring in visit duration as a label on the right side, and go back to some visits, and we'll bring in total visits as a label on the left side. So now we have a nice graph here that shows us of the pages that get hit more than 50 times. Here's how many times they've been visited, and this is which pages were looked at more often. So, for example, the About page, people on average spend about 8 minutes on, versus on 8 principles that can make your analytics a rock star, people spend less than a minute. Allows you to focus on which pages are actually getting traffic and which pages are not. Let's rename the sheet to Dropoffs. And let's create our next dashboard based off of that. So just clicked New Dashboard again. I'm going to switch this over to Automatic. We are going to pull in Geography again. I am going to put Drop-Offs on the right, and we'll put Visits here on the bottom. And it looks like I messed something up with visits. Let's filter this down actually by destination page, filter. Let's get rid of this. Let's switch it to top 10 by. Instead, we're going to pull visits. So now I'm only looking at 10 pages. Let's go back to the dashboard, and hey, this looks a little cleaner. Resize these so that they fit the views we're looking for, and again, we're going to use geography here as a filter, so that we can select Texas, and boom, we're looking at the exit pages and data just for Texas versus looking at the national level. Okay, so let's go through and let's build our. So now we have our two dashboards. Let's take a look here. We've got our viewers dashboard, our visit analysis dashboard, our last one, which does this bubble view here, which is fun. We're going to take a look at traffic sources and where they come from, what locations on the source system the link came from, and what landing page or what page they hit based on that link. So let's go back in. Create a new worksheet. Let's first do the traffic sources. So I'm going to duplicate this connection one more time, and we're going to rename this just so I don't get confused. And we are going to edit this connection, and we're actually going to take a look at instead traffic sources, referral path, source, audience. We're still going to keep visitor path, and we're still going to look at landing type. So let's get rid of a bunch of these. Care about destination page, keyword. We don't care about metropolitan area. We don't care about the state. I'm going to go to my traffic sources here, and I'm going to choose referral path. That is the path that you came from. The source, which is the website or location that the link came from. We're still going to go, I believe I already have visitor type in here. Yep. And let's grab from content, let's grab landing page. That is the page that people land on here. We're still going to keep the same measures. We're going to go look at new visitors, unique visitors, visit duration, and visits. Say OK. Again, Tableau is going to say a whole bunch of dimensions are missing because I have removed them. So I am just going to remove them from here. And just because I know this data goes a little crazy, we're going to filter right away. The sum of visits must be at least 3, just so we don't get a ton of data. We are going to pull out. We're going to pull out on here the traffic source. And we'll make it by color. Pull out traffic source again, and we're going to give it the label itself. And we are going to say the number of visits on size. That gives us this nice square view. I'm going to switch these two circles to give us some bubbles. And again, we have some very, very disparate data. So instead, I'm actually going to swap out size to log of visits to clean this up a little bit. And then just to get rid of some of the information we don't need, like a direct link, we'll exclude. We will exclude stuff that comes from a test site, exclude, and hey, we've updated our word bubbles a bit. Go ahead, Jerry. Do you have a question?
Yes, we have a question. So duplicating the data sources allows you to get to more than the 7 dimensions or more than the 6 dimensions, right?
Correct. Like I started off saying to begin with, you are limited to 7 dimensions in one connection. If you duplicate the data source, though, you can connect to it. You can connect using different dimensions, and then assuming you have some dimensions that are common between 2 data sources, you can actually data blend between those 2. So it allows you to get a little farther in, allows you to get a little more information than you can with just 7 if you do that. It takes a little bit of work, but Tableau basically runs an extract per connection and then aggregates that data up and allows you to blend it accordingly. Go ahead.
Okay, and we are getting a comment that there may be an issue with the data blend on extracts to Google Analytics, so we'll have to get back to one of the questions on that topic. But somebody's saying that they did have some issues that they ran into doing that, and that Tableau said that apparently there's some limitations with that.
There are limitations, yes, just based off of what it pulls in, but you can do it. You just have to run through some extracts. But for whoever is having issues with that, if you have questions, you can talk to us later about it, and I can walk you through some of the ways to hack around it or get it to work correctly.
Okay, and then we have another follow-up question, Jim.
Sure.
Is there any dimension that is better than the other dimensions is the question.
I'm sorry, I don't think I understand the question.
So I think what the question is asking is, I think it goes, and this question, if you would feel free to add any additional explanations, I think what we're asking though is, are there any specific fields that work better in the case of a dimension for analyzing your Google Analytics than others? And the question, okay, there's some clarification here, specifically for data blending is the scenario. So is there a specific field that should be considered above the others for data blending?
Low cardinality usually is the best for data blending itself. If you don't have tons and tons of possible values when you're data blending, it goes a lot quicker. But past that, if you have more questions about it, we can talk about it afterwards, and I can run through it. Okay. So we were creating this nice little word bubble, allows me to select locations. I don't actually like the colors based on source, so actually we're going to go and change color to the log of visits, so we can see, hey, we've got a lot of traffic from Google, we've got a lot of traffic from LinkedIn, but past that, not a ton more. Word bubbles, they're fun to look at anyway. Let's rename this to source selection. So next we're going to create our source paths. We're going to grab unique visitors here. We're going to grab referral path. We actually want to filter referral path by top 15. And let's grab just the first 15 so we don't get some crazy number. We are going to swap this so it looks a little better, and we're going to hide null here. And then last but not least, we'll sort this descending by field unique visitors. Apply. So now we've got a nice little view that shows us the referral path of where sources came from. Notice that I don't have anything in here that shows the actual source. So no matter what source system this came from, it would show up in here. So you can see it breaks up where the location came from, hey, LinkedIn, et cetera else. Since I'm going to be using this since I'm going to be using the previous visualization as a selector for this, I'm actually going to keep referral path off of this, or keep source off of this. Name, we're going to say source path. And then let's just duplicate this sheet because our last sheet is extremely similar. Only instead of referral path, we're going to look at landing page. And again, we're going to filter on landing page. We're going to say top 15 based off of unique visitors. And we'll sort this descending by field. Okay, so now we have a nice graph of how many of where people hit based off of this. We're going to rename, we're going to say destination. So we'll go in, we'll create one more dashboard here. Again, I'm going to set it to automatic for full screen. We're going to pull in our source selection here. I'm going to pull in my source path and put it over here on the right. And we're going to pull in our destination. I'm going to change this to fit the entire view. Change these all to fit entire view, and again, we're going to turn this on as use as filter. So now if I select LinkedIn, hey, I'm just looking at source path LinkedIn and destination of destination page. Just to make this a little nicer, we'll make it a little wider. You can see where they came from. They came from an article. They came from just group item, group answers, and they also come from specific articles. So it allows us to look at, hey, where is our traffic from LinkedIn coming from? Is it because we're posting a lot on groups, or is it because we're posting individuals, etc., posting individual documents, etc. And that's it. That's what I have for dashboards at the moment. Let's make this a little cleaner. I'll bring up visitors here. We'll bring up dashboard 2, And we'll bring up dashboard 3. So now we've got our 3 dashboards. We've got some interactivity set up. Allow us to take a look at traffic. I'm not sure if I set up. Yeah, I did. Good. Allows us to take a look at traffic based and visits based off of locations, and allows us to take a look at source systems. As an extra, because I have some extra time here, if you guys want, I will show you how to do a quick little word cloud. I enjoy building these. Let's go back to just our default. Originally, I had pulled in keyword. So I know I just love the way word clouds look. So I know that this is going to look a little funny if I don't have at least a couple of visits brought in here. But let's bring in a keyword on color. Let's bring in keyword on label. And let's bring in size to be number of visits. And let's switch this back to text. And now we have Tableau giving us a nice word cloud of the keywords and search terms that brought us to this. I'm actually going to exclude not provided, and instead of doing visits, we're going to do the log, so it gets a little cleaner. And you can see that for this website, based off of these search terms, people got to this. It's a nice little word cloud, nice little visualization. But that's all I have at the moment. Do you guys have some more, any more questions or things? I'm certainly open for questions. Thank you for attending, and hopefully learn something about Statslice and learn something about Tableau and Google Analytics today.
Jim, one other question came up. May we have a copy of the example workbook? And I think that if we remove the Google Analytics connection to our site, they would be able to hook it up to a site of their choosing, correct?
Yeah.
So, so whoever has an interest in the workbook, if you would, and I'll go ahead and put an email up on the screen in a moment, if you would just send an email letting us know that you would have an interest in the sample workbook that Jim walked through today, we'd be happy to send that to you. And so what we'll also do at this time is we'll leave the webinar open for any questions that may come up. And that way, if anybody hasn't had a chance to ask your question yet, feel free to do so. We'll leave it open until noon, which is another 15 minutes. In the meantime, let me go ahead and show Jim's email so that if there's any questions from what Jim has talked about today, you'll have a chance to ask those offline as well if you'd like to. So let me just take the presenter back over here. Okay. So let me just flip to the last slide here. So here's Jim's email address. Feel free to take that down. And again, send any questions that you may have. And once again, we'll leave the webinar open for any questions that you may have until everybody's dropped off or until noon, whichever comes earlier. We hope you've enjoyed the webinar today and found some interesting use cases for using Tableau 8 with Google Analytics and found some interesting approaches to doing that. So again, thank you for your time. We'll leave the webinar open for any follow-up questions.